going on, guys? Welcome back to another week of Quarantine Kitchen. This week it's all about the coveted ever so morsel of the macaron. And yes, I said macaron, not macaroon, which some of you may be familiar with as far as macaroons, that little coconutty thing that sticks together. And yeah, no, this is the macaron. We're definitely going to tackle this one today because I've gotten so many requests and so many comments about how they've tried and they failed. So what I really tried to do with this video today is make sure to give you the tips on how to overcome those challenges and where to really highlight on the technique of it all. So by the end of this video, I promise you'll be able to make the perfect macaron. All right, let's go.
Jumping right into it, we want to go with ingredients. So we're going to start out with 100 grams of egg whites, that's approximately 3 large eggs, 140 grams of almond flour, about 1.5 cups, 90 grams of granulated sugar, just under a cup, 130 grams of powdered sugar, 1 cup, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and a 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar. Scale is key here, guys. It's really important to have accuracy when it comes to your ingredients for a good macaron. First thing we're going to do, we're going to take our confectioner's sugar and we're going to take our almond flour, we're going to put it in our food processor. Now, you might be able to buy a really fine almond flour already. However, we need it to be finer. I promise you cannot have it too fine here. So ultimately, what I'd like for you to do is just put it in your food processor, whip it around for about 30 seconds. You might have to shake a little bit depending on how much moisture is in that almond flour. And then from there, you're going to run it through a sieve, back into the food processor, back into a sieve, back into a food processor again, and then one sieve final time. You'll see how much finer that looks now, and this is just the final run through the sieve here. You're ultimately going to end up with a few lumps of almond flour on the very top of it. Don't feel like you need to push those through the sieve. You absolutely do not need to do so. Discard those. The recipe is actually already calculated that you're going to have a little bit of almond flour that's going to be wasted. So in a regular stand mixer or a hand mixer, in goes your egg whites. You're going to whip them just till they become frothy. That's going then when you're going to throw in your cream of tartar next. And that cream of tartar is just going to help denature some of those proteins in the egg whites. And then just slowly, and I can't stress enough, slowly add in your sugar, and that's just plain granulated sugar. And the thing is if you add it in too quickly now, you're going to help, and you're going to almost break your meringue, if you will. So a little bit at a time, it's going to help keep your meringue nice, light, and fluffy. Now that we have all the sugar added in, you're just going to continue to let that go until stiff peaks. And yes, we want absolutely stiff peaks here, nothing less. Now once we get them almost there, one thing you can do is go ahead and add in whatever food coloring you're going to add. I highly recommend using something like a gel food coloring because it will not add any more moisture to your egg whites, and it won't kind of thin them out. So ultimately here, for both the buttercream that we'll be doing and for the meringue here, use something like a gel food coloring. As you can see there, we're almost to the point where we have stiff peaks. I really like to make sure. Now, by no means do you want to overbeat it, but absolutely you have to have a nice stiff peak for something like this, because what you'll see here in a minute is we're going to start folding in that almond flour into it, and we're going to deflate it a little bit. So we need to make sure we start with a good structure. Now in there just went a little bit of vanilla just at the end for flavoring. As you can see, we've got a nice, really stiff peak there. One way you can also check that a lot of people will do is flip the bowl on over, and if nothing comes out, you are at that point where you have a nice, solid, stiff peak. Now in goes that meringue into the almond flour mixture. I personally like to have a nice wide bowl like this, so you have plenty of room to be able to have that folding motion. And folding is really key here. You do not want to stir. It's really just about folding with one hand, turning the bowl with the other, over and over and over again. And what we're doing is we're actually deflating a little bit of our egg whites, but ultimately we're getting a nice mixture, and what you'll get to the point where you will see it'll almost be like a lava consistency, where it really just kind of ebbs and flows with it. but ultimately we're looking for that figure 8. So if you watch the hollandaise video that I did about a month ago, it's that same consistency that you're looking for, to be able to make an 8 into it and make almost a ribbon and have it go around. You can see we're getting really close there. Just keep working it. I promise you, you don't want it to be too thick, but you also don't want it to be too thin. So consistency is where most people fail here at this point. They either get scared and they think that, oh, you should really have it, but as you can see right there, that's pretty much that perfect figure 8. You can still see the 8 in the batter. So we're gonna call that done, and we're gonna move right into a piping bag with just a round tip. Now, some people feel more comfortable with maybe working with half the batter at a time. I happen to use the whole thing, but what you can do with a little bit of that extra batter left in the bowl is just put a little bit under your parchment paper that you're lining on the sheet there, and that's really going to help it from staying down and not getting moved around on you. You can also use a little bit of cooking spray if you like to. And then just from there, you want to go perpendicular down and just straight down and finish with a little bit of a twist at the end. And you'll notice that it's going to have a little bit of a tail, but here in a moment, after we get everything piped out, we're actually going to set them. And you'll see as it continues to fall a little bit, and that is that setting motion right there. We're trying to get as many bubbles out, but we're also trying to get rid of that little tail and let it sit flat. Now what I like to do is just set up a little bit of a fan, or if you have a fan like a ceiling fan, that works well, but you want to let these things sit out for at least an hour and get a little skin to form, and I'll show you that here later in the video. And now onto our strawberry basil buttercream. We're going to start with 1 cup of butter, 5 egg yolks, half cup of granulated sugar, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 3 tablespoons of water, a pinch of salt, and our strawberry and basil there. Into a small saucepan goes our sugar and water mixture. We're going to bring that to a boil, and ultimately we want to take it to a soft boil stage of 240 degrees. Meanwhile, while that's coming up to temp, we're going to add our egg yolks into the stand mixer. We're going to beat that just till it becomes nice, light, and frothy. In the meantime, we'll go ahead and small dice our strawberries, and we really want almost a brunoise here, or a very small dice if you will, and we're going to chiffonade up our basil and just chop it up a little bit finer from there. As you can see, we have that nice syrupy mixture. With the mixer on low, we're going to add in just a very small stream of our sugar mixture there, and this would be obviously very reminiscent of doing something like a French style meringue. Well, this is a French style buttercream, and really the big difference is we're using egg yolks, and then we're going to fold in lots of really good butter with it. We've incorporated all the sugar at that point. As you can see, the color of it continues to change. Now we're just looking for that to come to room temperature. As you can see me feeling the bowl there to make sure that it's no longer warm, and that's when you just start adding in 1 little pat of butter at a time. Once you've incorporated all the butter, in goes the vanilla, a little pinch of salt, and then this is also once again a good time to add in your food coloring. Once again, just using a red gel food coloring here. Once this has all come together, you're just going to lightly fold in the strawberries and basil. Now you could totally skip this step and you're going to come up with a much finer consistency to your buttercream. I personally like the freshness that it adds to the macaron, so I don't mind that it's a little bit of a chunkier buttercream here, and it doesn't give you as a refined finished look, but I personally like the outcome of it. Now we head back to our macaron that have been sitting out for about an hour, and as you can see, it's going to have a little shell on the outside, and you should easily be able to touch them. So into the oven those go, 400 degrees for about 15 to 20 minutes. And this is what you should end up with as your final result. Let those cool completely on a wire rack. They should be easy to handle. Sometimes you might be able to have to take something like a spatula to get them off. But as you can see there, you want to put them right on a wire rack, cool completely, and then that's when you can go ahead and start filling. So just taking your frosting there, putting it inside a piping bag, a little bit of buttercream on one side, and then just sandwiching it between another macaron. And that is as simple as making a very classic French macaron with a strawberry basil butter cream. Now, the only thing that these will make these better is let them sit in your refrigerator covered for about 2 to 3 days, and it will take away a little bit of that crunch and give you that nice chewiness that you would expect from a macaron.
See guys, that wasn't so hard now, was it? So I say that just joking. Obviously, I continue to only get better as I make macaron. It's just learning those tips and tricks as each time that you do it. But now you know it's all about that consistency of that almond flour, getting it nice and fine. It's about getting that right figure 8 pattern in your batter to be able to make sure it's the right consistency when you go to pipe it, and then getting that nice outer shell of it right before it goes into the oven. So I hope I've been able to share some tips with you today to overcome the challenges you've had with macarons in the past. But ultimately, get out there, go try it yourself. Make sure to like and subscribe this video because more to come. Actually, next week we're going to be tackling blueberry scones. So if you want to miss that video, make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you again for it next week. See you guys.